Shall we get started then? So everyone, welcome everyone to this month's ISNS Neuro-Semantics Wisdom session. So welcome to all of you from Australia, Asia, Africa, Europe, North and South America. So I wish you good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to you wherever that you are. And welcome, Michael and Geraldine. For those who have not seen my face before, you don't know me, I am Mazuki. I'm a Neuro-Semantics trainer and meta coach, and I'm representing Malaysia in the ISNS leadership team, and I'll be your host for today. This is the ISNS Neuro-Semantics Wisdoms meeting. The purpose of this Neuro-Semantics Wisdoms meeting is to have a stronger connection between our international society, the Neuro-Semantics Institutes, and members. It is also a platform for us to refresh our knowledge of neurosemantics, to recharge and be inspired with renewed meanings, to increase our collaboration, and to have fun. These meetings are organized every month, alternating with the community meeting. So in May, which is the odd month of the year, we have the Wisdoms meeting. In June and the even months of the year, we'll be having the community meetings. And we hope that we'll be able to see and meet each and every one of you in all of these meetings. Now, to start off this meeting, I'd like to honor your presence through the institutes. So in a short while, I'm going to call out your institute, the names of the institute, and I would like you to respond with your national greeting. Hi, hello, apa khabar, or whatever it is, with your loudest voice. And if you are the type who would like to make that greeting for every institute, go ahead. I'd just like to hear a lot of noise. So now I'd like to invite you to unmute your mics. And I'd like to begin with the Institute of Neuro-Semantics Africa.
Oh,
Ahlan.
Thank you.
Hello.
Thank you, Africa.
I didn't realize.
Hubati.
Oh, Bati. You forgot. Okay. Next, the Neuro-Semantics Institute of Australia.
Good day.
Hey,
Folks.
good day, mate. Good day, mate.
Hey, mate.
Aussie. Oi.
It's Dilla.
I love it.
Next, the Institute of Neuro-Semantics Brazil.
Olá. Bom dia.
Oh, essa parada.
Next, we welcome the Institutes of Neuro-Semantics Egypt, Middle East, and North Africa.
أهلا بيكم ازيكم
Ahlan. Next, the Institute of Neuro-Semantics Europe and Scandinavia.
Hello.
Wow, thank you. Next, the Institute of Neuro-Semantics Hong Kong and China. Right.
喂，你好，你好，你好，香港，你好，大家好。
So many of you there. Next, the Institute of Neuro-Semantics Indonesia.
Hai, apa kabar?
Next, the Institute of Neuro-Semantics Latham.
Hola.
Hola.
Hola, ¿cómo están?
Hola.
Hola. Saludos desde México. Saludos desde México.
Next, the Institute of Neuro-Semantics, Malaysia, Philippines, and Singapore.
Mabuhay!
Mabuhay, magandang gabi.
Next is the Institute of Neuro-Semantics, the US of A.
Hey,
Hello. Welcome to all of you, and it is such a great pleasure for me to start off this meeting for today. Just a couple of reminders about this meeting, that we have a time frame of about 90 minutes, and I would like now to invite each and every one of you to switch to put on your videos if your bandwidth can take care of the video transmission, and at the same time, if you have your videos on and you need to move about, please switch off your video so that it doesn't interrupt with the proceeding. The other one is your mic. Please switch off your mic unless you are asking question and the moderator for the event has invited you to ask question verbally, then you can do that. However, for questions, what we would encourage you to do is to type your questions in the chat room and start off with the capital Q. And then whatever question, because that will give me an indication that it is a question. So what I will do is I will copy that question and send it to the moderator so that every of the questions he will have it with him so that he can post it to Michael afterwards. If time is limited, the moderator will choose the most relevant question to pose to Michael. Now for today, we have, it is a pleasure and honor for me to bring to you Dr. Michael Hall, who will be speaking on developing the characteristics of self-actualizing people. What I would like to do now is to introduce to you the moderator for the presentation segment. And from then on, the moderator will take this presentation fully and completely. So I would like to introduce our moderator for this evening. That is Sean Dyer from Australia. So over to you, Sean. Go ahead, and you have the room.
Thanks, Mizuki. Yeah, thank you everybody for a great warm welcome. So it's fantastic. Everybody's here, and I really appreciate your time and efforts. And thank you, Michael, for your time, considering you're in Brazil, I think, at the moment. And so self-actualization is it's a brilliant topic. You know, it's such a heartfelt and also growth topic. So what we'd like to do is just to go through a few of the questions really and understand a little bit more deeper about self-actualization. And so, you know, it's about being, self-actualization is really about the psychologically healthy people and how we can become more fully functioning. And so what is it that you've got around that to discuss, Michael, regarding self-actualization? Where would you like to start?
So to begin the conversation on self-actualization, it is the bright side of human psychology or human nature. And that's what we do in Neuro-Semantics. We're focusing on people growing, developing, unleashing their highest potential. And the very theme of Neuro-Semantics, meaning and performance, actualizing our highest meanings into our performances and performing whatever we're performing with our highest meanings is a result of the self-actualization psychology. So 2005, we made self-actualization psychology, we designated it as the psychology of Neuro-Semantics.
Okay, so self-actualization psychology is the psychology of Neuro-Semantics. So that's how we really want to enable us as a community, as individuals, as you and Gerald talked about before, also as part of that collaborative adventure as well. How does it fit Neuro-Semantics in with NLP and our Neuro-Semantics modeling? How does that self-actualization really support us?
So it fits in historically first. NLP came out of the human potential movement of the 1960s and 70s, and it was a birth child of that movement. And the key leaders in that movement, Fritz Perls, Gregory Bateson, Virginia Satir, gave birth to NLP, although NLP, for the most part, never recognized that it was based upon self-actualization psychology. That was the discovery I came across in 2005, which helped me to understand where our NLP presuppositions came from. They came from Abraham Maslow and Carl Rogers primarily.
Yeah, so the presuppositions was a great discovery for you to see that they came from Maslow and Rogers, really.
Right.
Those presuppositions are fundamental to neurosemantics, and a lot of our trainings, a lot of our programs and human development are based with those presuppositions.
Exactly.
As you said, 2005, where 2007, the Unleashed, the guide to self-actualization, the self-actualization psychology, achieving peak performance, even accessing personal genius has quite a underpinning for growth, for self-actualization.
Exactly.
And so, yeah, so how does this consist of self-actualization, the models that we have in neurosemantics? We've started off with, say, the Maslow hierarchy of needs in self-actualizing, and then you took that further with some neurosemantic models. Could you explain a bit about what those models are?
So let me back up just a little bit to the psychology itself. The psychology assumes and presupposes that there's nothing wrong with us. Even people who suffer psychiatric disorders, there's nothing wrong with them. They have a wrong strategy. It's not the person, it's the strategy that's wrong. So this enables us to now address people from the standpoint of, what's your potential? What potentials have you not unleashed yet? What is waiting and clamoring inside you so that you can be the best you can be fully functioning? That was Carl Rogers' phrase. Self-actualization is fully functioning, mentally, emotionally, verbally, behaviorally. And Abraham Maslow added that it's being fully human, so authenticity and being real, and fully alive. So that's the aliveness and vitality. Well, all of those are the values that we're seeking to promote in ourselves and everybody we interact with. We train and coach so that people can find, discover, and then unleash their potentials so that they actualize in everyday life what is inside.
Okay, so if self-actualization is about that finding, discovering, and developing their real self, that what is internally, that inner world, what are the unique features about this self-actualization discovery?
So it helps us. What it does, it helps us to ground what we do, not in just unsubstantiated hopes, but substantiated hopes that's grounded in our very nature. And so as we start there, we go to the human needs and the two levels of human needs, the deficiency needs and the being needs. And now we can say that what gets in our way is mostly false maps. We have falsely mapped what a need is, how it works, and how to satisfy it. And once we can unlearn that, we're free now to find the real drives that give us energy and vitality.
Okay, and so Michael, you just talked about the false maps. Could you tell us a little bit more about those false maps? What is it that creates it in that description? What are the aspects there that we need to unleash from, really?
Okay, so one of the things that Maslow helped us to understand in self-actualization psychology is that unlike animals, we don't have instincts, And in the place of instincts, we have consciousness. And so that's where the cognitive psychological model comes in. And Maslow says when people are wrong, they're cognitively wrong. They're not wrong in themselves. It's just a false map. And it's so easy to create false maps. Parents help us, teachers help us, the media help us. We create false understandings. So we need to get to correct understandings of how it actually works. So the 4 meaning questions we use in neurosemantics: what is it? How does it work? How does it function? What is its value? And then what should I do? And you ask those 4 meaning questions, and we're beginning to create really a positive orientation of meanings about whatever the subject is.
Okay, and so if we're creating that positive orientation, then we really have to go beyond the cognitive, the distortions of our map, so that we can actually create, productive and life-enhancing meanings. And so that why one of the aspects of our cognitive psychology models is looking at those distortions and growing to more adult cognitions. And then that is also, and that's also holding us back from our potentials, that cognition.
Right. So where NLP came in, NLP looked at what Fritz was doing and Virginia was doing, and Bateson, and they found out that the magic was in the language. So the first NLP book, The Structure of Magic, which is the meta model, which is how to speak with precision and clarity. So one of the first things we do to actualize our highest and best is to get a precise and clear languaging and to clean up the childish language that we tend to default to.
Okay, so cleaning up that language to a more rich, clearer map. Ultimately, I'm really curious about some of the other models, that the self-actualizing models. So as I mentioned, we had learned about the hierarchy of needs, but then there was really many people worldwide understood the concept, but couldn't really apply or didn't have the full skills to be able to apply the self-actualization. And so what are the other models that neurosemantics hold to enable people to be able to develop themselves more fully?
Okay. So we took the hierarchy of needs, which everybody knows is the pyramid of 5 levels: survival, safety, social needs, love and affection, belonging, and then self needs, need to feel important, need to feel value, worth, and then the self-actualization needs. And while that is insightful about where are you in terms of what needs are you striving for, it's really not a dynamic model. So inside of that, we put the matrix. And the matrix is about how we make meanings, the intentions we have, how that affects who we are, the skills and powers we have, relationships with others, in time, in different domains. And because the meanings we give create the instincts we live, now it becomes dynamic. We can go to the meanings and intentions and how that leads to the behavioral instincts that we're living. And if we're not living in a healthy, sane way, we can just correct it. And so by putting the matrix inside of the pyramid, we ended up creating a volcano. So that now it's alive and we can follow it. So that's one of the models.
Okay, so with the matrix in that pyramid and creating the volcano, I may be going a little quick, but just inquiring about that, where do we go with the volcano? Where does that take us then? If we use that matrix model to generate health and more potential, how do we then, where do we get to from through that volcano, that dynamic,
So-
visible dynamic.
So the first principle is satisfy the lower needs adequately and truly. Satisfy your need for food, sleep, thirst, all the lower needs, satisfy them truly, so it satisfies them, and adequately. And what happens is the next level is unleashed. And the next level is unleashed, and the next level. And this is the growth. This is developmental growth and how we go up through it. And so when we do that, then the higher needs start to manifest themselves. My need for meaning, my need for contribution, my need for order and beauty and structure and contribution and giving back. And so at the top of the pyramid, as it becomes a volcano, we shoot for the stars of whatever passion is within us. So Maslow said, what a person is, they must be. If a person is a musician, they must make music. If a person is a poet, they must write poetry. What a person is, they must be. And so this is the discovery, and each of us is different in that when I take care of the lower needs, I'm going to discover how I'm wired for the higher needs.
Yeah, so it's like our own idiosyncratic development, our own individual growth. And so to just back up, yeah, thank you. To just back up a little, there's a question about how does neurosemantics put the actual matrix inside that hierarchy of needs to help us get to that higher level?
Well, in terms of a diagram, we just put a person inside so that, and this is where it's so different from animal psychology. An animal has information built into the genes. They just know what to eat, who eats them. They just know how to survive, how to mate, and we don't. So we humans, in some ways, start off at a much lower level than the animals. We don't know what to eat. We don't know what's edible. And we have to learn what's a poison, what's not. Animals don't have sleep disturbance, but many humans have sleep disturbance because we don't know how to do it until we learn how to truly and effectively take care of these needs. And so it is cognition, it is consciousness that informs the need. And so we got two dynamics. You got the need, and then you've got the understanding. And if the understanding is distorted, the whole need is going to become a pseudo need or a neurotic need. And this is how people go wrong.
Okay, and so it's learning, and then learning how to the right meanings to put on our needs so that they stay healthy, and they don't go neurotic. And I think is it also the cognition that also creates a part of that neurosis. So if we have that clear understanding, the meaning enables us to then develop through the matrix processes to become fully human. Okay, great.
So instead of instincts, we have learning. Learning is our instinct. And it's the essential thing we do in neurosemantics.
Okay. And so looking at also, say, unleashing potentials, there's another model that we have around the crucible, and it talks also about the emotions and about how we need to create the kinds of meanings that will empower us to thrive and so forth. And I'd just like to understand more around how the crucible fits into this overall picture of self-actualization, and how do our emotions sort of use that model?
Okay. So when we go back to Bateson at Esalen and Virginia Satir, who was the director of training and development at Esalen, and Fritz Perls, who was the first scholar in residence at Esalen, in the Human Potential Movement, while they used language in a clean and a clear way to create specificity, they also did one other thing. They created a context in which people felt safe to be. And so Carl Rogers said, it takes unconditional positive regard, accurate empathy, and compassion to help someone develop. Well, that's a description of the crucible. That I can become a crucible for somebody. Somebody could become a crucible for me if they'll unconditionally value me, be compassionate, be truth-speaking, hold me accountable, responsible. And out of that interpersonal interaction, which we're calling a crucible, out of that, I'm safe now to come out from behind myself and get real. When we get real, that's when we become fully human and fully alive. Everything we use to hide behind masks and to present a persona and play to our status makes us more inauthentic, not real. And if you're not real, then you're going to be defensive, closed, rigid, scared of discovering who you are. So the crucible model picks up on the emotional, relational dynamics that they used to give people a safe place to be.
Okay, great. And so then also that crucible and the emotions, because one of the aspects that will limit us as human beings is that fear of internal, or the holding ourselves, limiting ourselves to not see that the heaven inside, so to speak, or to be able to grow internally. And so that whether it's fear of self and fear of others, and is this how we can utilize that crucible by being able to, considering, currently getting through the pandemia and recognizing that, as you said, the media putting in, instilling poor maps, instilling in the emotional aspects that just may be holding people back. Is this now a part of the opportunities for neurosemanticists to be able to develop the community, to develop human potential through using models like the crucible, enabling that freedom of emotions to self-actualize? Okay, great. And so what other distinctions are there, Michael?
There's the leashing and unleashing. So leashing is when something, as it were, is leashing us to something so that we're not free to be ourselves and express ourselves and discover our potential. And so leashing would be any taboo, any thing that is forbidden that prevents us from fully growing. And so we have a leashing from, leashing to model. What do you want to be unleashed to? Maybe it's leadership. What do you need to be unleashed from? Fear what other people think. And so the leashing from and the leashing to gives us a way to really specify a person's growth path.
Okay. And so to consider, we just have another question about that leashing as such, some examples of, say, the childish language. So what would what is the childish language? Can you give us some examples of how that language leashes us?
Well, if I say I can't stand criticism, I just leash myself to other people's criticism. I can't stand disapproval. It's like there's a leash around my neck and it is tied to their approval. And if they frown, it pulls me. So this is why Fritz Perls and Virginia Satir was always listening for the can'ts. I can't stand this or that, because every time you say that, you are giving away your power. and letting other people or circumstances control you. I can't stand being embarrassed. I can't stand being intensely afraid. I can't stand. So there's the leashing. Okay. And the unleashing can be so simple. Instead of saying I can't, say I choose. I choose to be leashed to people's approval. And now we have put people at choice point and responsibility.
Yeah, and that's where that Fritz Perls awareness, his statement, without awareness, there is no cognition of choice. And so, as you've said, I choose gives us that freedom and choice there. And so that's great. Another question is, the childish language, does that mean the self-limitation? Does that hold that individual back? Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I could never think of myself as a leader, a salesperson, a marketer, a benchmarker. I can never think of myself. Well, you just leash yourself with an identity statement.
Okay. What else, Michael, around the leashing? There was a piece about how are our capacities needs. So could you tell us a bit about how our actual capacities are needs?
Say that again. I'm not quite catching what you're saying.
Yeah, so around how we hold ourselves back, how our capacities are actually needs as well, to press our potentials. How does our actual human capacities operate as our needs?
I don't know if I'm understanding you correctly. Capacity is about the ability that is potential. So all of us have the capacity to learn, the capacity to create great relationships, the capacity to create wealth, capacity to be creative. We've got that capacity, but whether it has been developed as a skill depends upon learning, training, development, which is why we coach and train. And so that capacity is there. And a lot of people, they don't even know their capacity. And in fact, I would say all of us do not know what we're capable of. And if we could be unleashed, what capabilities could occur that we can't even imagine now.
Yeah, and so if we then unleash those capacities and develop more fully as human beings, we just want to consider about appreciation. How does appreciation change the way that we value our potentials? Could you provide us some information around how that mechanism works for self-actualization?
Okay, so before I speak about appreciation, let me describe the dynamic at the being level. Okay. At the deficiency level, the more you satisfy a need, the less it drives you. The more you satisfy, the less it drives. The more, the less. That's the dynamic. The more food you eat, the less hungry you are. The more water you drink, the less thirsty you are. The more you sleep, the more rejuvenated you become and the less tired you are. That's how the deficiency needs work. And so it's the more, the less. When we get to the self-actualization drives and the meta drives and needs, it's the more, the more. So the more I satisfy it, the more the capacity grows. And this is where you never know what's going to emerge. So the more music I make, the more music I want to make and I can make. The more knowledge I get, the more knowledge I want and can handle. And that's where capacity grows. Now, appreciation falls into that, because if you think about that, how you can appreciate whatever the capacity is now, the more you develop it, the more it's going to grow. And you can be in a state of wonderment and fascination and delight and surprise as to what is possible. And that is one of the characteristics of a self-actualizing person, to be in a state of awe, a state of wonder, state of fascination about what's possible. And when people get negative and pessimistic, they're not living the self-actualizing life. Big sign.
Okay. And so you mentioned the characteristics there, and that key one, that big sign. Are there any other distinctions for characteristics of self-actualizing people?
So Maslow wrote 19 of them. I got them in front of me because I haven't memorized them. So it's capacity to tolerate uncertainty. And how much do we need that today? Because tomorrow's really uncertain. The war in Ukraine, uncertain. The economics in almost every country, uncertain. So the capacity to tolerate uncertainty, the acceptance of self and others. I mean, the world would change if we would just accept ourselves and others. Spontaneity and creativity, instead of rigidity and defensiveness and closed-mindedness. The need for private and solitude. The need to sometimes get away and just be with myself. That I'm good company to myself, and I'm not afraid to be alone. Alone does not mean lonely. Capacity for deep and intense relationships. That's a hunger all of us have. Deep and intense relationships, to get real in our relationships instead of a shallow, superficial relationship. Genuine caring and loving. Once again, it's a program for changing the world. Altruistic, because if you're caring and loving, you'll want to be altruistic and contributing and giving back to other people. Self-transcending. I can get my ego out of the way. I can transcend. It's not just about me. There's a lot more than just myself. A sense of humor and lightness. So the book I wrote a couple of years ago, humorous thinking. So if you can't see humor in just about everything, and if you don't have at least 20 good laughs every day, you're probably not a self-actualizing person. Inner directedness and absence of artificial dichotomies. And Maslow put love, hate, weak, strong, play, work. And so inner directedness, so this is the inside out, and lack of artificial dichotomies. More efficient perception of reality. So there's the precision and clarity and specificity. We can see details, and we can see it without our biases. And so getting rid of our cognitive biases. A simplicity and naturalness. And so this is the childlikeness that we rediscover as grown-ups. Autonomy, independence of culture, and independence of the need for conformity. Now, that would just revolutionize the social media and everybody who gets depressed when they don't have some likes or when someone dislikes them. The need for autonomy. Then there's peak experiences. Those moments when there's a moment of awe and eureka, and that can happen on a daily basis if you know how to do it, which is what we teach in the self-actualization modules. A more democratic attitude in dealing with others. So once again, the ability to discriminate between means and ends. This is where corporate organizations would be revolutionized if they could distinguish between means and ends, because they think the end is just more money, or the end is the return on investment this quarter. And those are just means to improving the human life. A more philosophical attitude, a greater sense of the sacredness of life. And then number 19, and the last one, and I think the most important one, a continued freshness of appreciation. A continued freshness of appreciation. Because what happens to most of us? We get bored. We get tired. I know that. Instead of a continued freshness of appreciation. So those are the 19 characteristics that Maslow, in a 20-year longitudinal study, discovered in fully functioning people.
Thanks, Michael. That's fantastic to hear those 19 characteristics and aspects of fully functioning people. And that's really what neurosemantics is about, to be able to strive to develop ourselves and others to be able to get there. And it's quite interesting how you explained about the corporates with the means to end ends as well, and particularly with that collaborative leadership that Gerald and yourself were discussing earlier in the meeting. Looking at those needs, we really are not able to get to those fully human needs, are we, when our lower deficiency needs aren't met, right? And that's why we meet those lower needs, then we can actually extend into and develop into the higher needs. One of the questions was around that deficiency not being fulfilled. Well, that's where a lot of individuals are potentially just living in those lower level needs and not experiencing what life has to offer.
A big misunderstanding of Maslow is the idea, and I've heard people say this multiple times in trainings. I need to fulfill all of my survival needs before I move to my safety needs, all of my safety needs before I move to the social needs. And Maslow did not say that. He said, if they're sufficiently satisfied, and he said, it may only be 40%. But you're getting by. You're getting by with your survival needs. Yeah, you could have more money, more things, more position. You could have more of a sense of safety, but maybe 20% is enough for you to move up to the social, to the self, and then up to the self-actualization. How many of the deficiency needs did Nelson Mandela fulfill and satisfy in prison for 27 years? And yet he was self-actualizing in prison. If he can do that in prison, if Viktor Frankl could do that in a concentration camp, then you don't need to fill it 100% or 80%, just enough to get by. And we got way too much materialism and commercialism and capitalism driving people to think, I need more of the lower needs.
Okay, and so this really emphasizes that point. The meaning you give is the instincts you live around the needs overall. I just wanted to ask you, Michael, Alfred Korzybski, he analyzed meaning in terms of its flexibility, and he called for an infinity valued semantics to expand those lower limitations. And that's where we have, the lower level, the animal needs, and then the more two valued needs and so forth. How does the valued semantics and the infinity valued semantics actually benefit people? Or is this really what we've been explaining?
Right. So infinite value semantics for Korzybski meant that there's lots of flexibility, so that if I look at criticism and it just one thing, it's criticism. But if I can go, well, it's information, and it's also that person's point of view, and it's also maybe that they need a nap, the more meanings I can give, the more choices I have, the less control that stimulus has over my response. So one of the things we teach in Neuro-Semantics is take anything, take criticism, give it 7 meanings. Give it 7 meanings, then give it 7 more. Then give it 7 more. Come up with 21 meanings, and then you choose the best meaning. The meaning that enhances your life, the meaning that empowers you. And if you can't do that, then consciousness is really restricted. And what we want to do is to open up consciousness so it's not so restricted, but have an infinite value of semantics.
Excellent. That's a great way to explain it. And particularly with when there's a need, and an individual may just hold one meaning, and because they think that, they assume it's true. And so offering 7 and then another 7 is a great way to change the perspective of the individual. So if we're then moving, we're using the neurosemantic, the material, the unleashing vitality, the unleashing potentials, you know, the working with the accessing personal genius. And I'm curious, how does it fit in with the accessing personal genius? How is that 3 days of metastating? How does the metastates apply and help us self-actualize?
Okay. Well, you've asked several questions there. First of all, with accessing personal genius, I did not know it at the time, 1994, but what I now know about the personal genius pattern and APG is that it's all designed to getting us to the flow state, how to turn flow on, turn it off, turn it on whenever you need it, turn it off when you don't need it. And the flow state is the synergy of meaning and performance. So we have the two axes, meaning and performance. And when you bring them together, there's a synergy. And that synergy is something more than and different from the sum of the parts. And what happens at that point is you find a singularity in your own experience, and we call it flow. It just seems like everything is so easy, it flows, whether you're writing, whether you're making music, whether you're making love, whether you're parenting children. It's just like you're in that flow zone. So APG, it has 14 patterns designed to get you there. So 14 prerequisites of that genius or flow or self-actualization state. So we have different names for it. We call it flow, we call it genius, we call it the optimal state. And so APG, even though I did not know it, is really one of the tools we use to get people to self-actualize something.
Okay. And so we've got another question. Does it mean that perception of people to themselves, him or her, life is also matters in terms of moving to higher needs? For example, if they are subjectively feeling that all their needs are fulfilled anyway, then they just can fulfill their higher needs. How does expanding self-awareness play the role in self-actualization?
Okay. So what Maslow said is that it's not a dichotomy. Being needs, deficiency needs, and being needs. It's both. Because every day I wake up and I'm hungry. So I have to satisfy the need again. Every day, every night when I end the day, I'm tired. I need to sleep again. So it's not that the deficiency needs go away, but that they're well managed. I know how to cope with hunger, thirst, food, money, sex, safety, protection, stability, belonging, affection, all of those lower needs. I know how to handle them. It's no big deal. In fact, I've got a lifestyle set up to where it handles it. I don't even have to think about it. But it is the base. Without that base, I can't go to the higher needs. So I need that base. And sometimes if the base is weak, if you're not getting enough exercise, if you're not eating the right food in the right amount, you have to come back and reestablish that base so that you have the vitality to live at the being needs. In this psychology, the clue, the cue that lets you know I'm ready to move and live at the being needs is vitality. So when you do that, it's going to have energy and vitality and thrill, and you have to manage yourself to stop doing it so much because you got so much motivation, the being motivation. If you get tired, worn out, fatigued, something's wrong with the base. And we need to go back to the base to strengthen it. So it's both and, not either or.
Okay, and the both and also enables that matrix to synergize the lower and the higher, right? So and that's where the matrix processing, when we embed that into the pyramid, can provide us with vitality. So hopefully that will help some previous questions.
So here's another myth that sometimes people have, and they may pick it up from some mystical religion or theology, and that is, if I could just get out of all the D needs, I could live like a spiritual monk. But of course, that doesn't work, because what will happen is maybe you will have all this heavenly inspirations, but you'll be of no earthly good, because you don't know how to take care of yourself, work, take care of others, and do all the foundational things. So it really is not an either or, it's a both and.
Okay, and what about, would you say the continuum freshness of appreciation, how does that relate to the constant state of gratitude? It's a question from David. He's just asking.
I would say it's the attitude of self-actualization. So the attitude is one of appreciation of myself, my potentials, my capacities, my appreciation of you and your potentials, and looking for the positive intention behind everything that you offer, which then prevents a lot of interpersonal strife. And it's the basic NLP presupposition behind every behavior is a positive intention. And so it's that appreciation of being alive, the appreciation of this is the day I have to live and live as fully as possible. And so appreciation is the attitude. Part of the attitude also is wonder, curiosity, and playfulness. So those would be some of the attitudes of the self-actualizing life.
Okay, great. With that attitude, it also, I think in our Unleashed, the book, and Unleashing Potential workshop, talks about benchmarked competencies for self-actualization. So we have presence, authenticity, courage, empowerment. Could you provide us the benefits of those benchmarks? What are the benefits of?
Yeah. So the problem of us humans is we use those big words, nominalizations, authenticity, confidence, even playfulness. We use them, and it can get real fluffy and vague and indescript. And so to benchmark them, if you're an authentic person, how are you going to talk? If you're an authentic person, how do you interact with other people? If you're an authentic person, and I saw you at work, what would I see and hear and feel? So the benchmarks gives practical, everyday measurements so that I can bring it down to earth and see practically what it shows up with. That reminds me of a quotation I want to read from Maslow. It's a great quotation, and it speaks right to what we're talking about. This comes from his book, The Further Reaches of Human Nature. And he says, self-actualization is a matter of degree. Little ascensions accumulated one by one. Too often our clients are inclined to wait for some kind of inspiration to strike so that they can say, at 3:23 on this Thursday, I became self-actualized. People selected for self-actualizing subjects, people who fit the criteria, go about it in different ways, little ways. They listen to their own voices. They take responsibility. They're honest. They work hard. They find out who they are and what they are, not only in terms of their mission in life, but also in terms of the way their feet feel when they wear such and such shoes, or whether they like eggplant or not, or if they stayed up all night because they drank too much beer. This is what it means to find your real self. And so with that idea, here's some benchmarks. that was the closest Maslow came to creating benchmarks. And what we've done is just detailed in a much more specificity.
Okay, great. And when we develop and progress along the self-actualizing path, benchmarks or using the 19 characteristics, the being needs, I've noticed with the meta needs, we can then also have what we call meta grumbles and restlessness. How does that fit into this mechanism, this human growth?
Yeah, that's really a good point. Because once again, it speaks to a misbelief. The misbelief is that once I self-actualize, it's done. It's over, complete, no more. And it's not like that at all, which is why we keep talking about it in present tense, self-actualizing living, and the ongoingness of it. And so remind me of your question.
Looking at the meta grumbles and restlessness.
Meta grumbles.
Yeah.
So because it's the more, Maslow said there arises a new discontent. That the person who satisfies something as it moves up here now has a new discontent and a new restlessness because the capacity has expanded. And this new discontent is what makes the self-actualizing people hungry, learn more, think more, feel more, give more, have more, contribute more, make more of a difference in the world. And so they're a restless bunch. So if we want another benchmark, restlessness to be more is another benchmark of self-actualizing life.
Yeah, and hearing those grumbles as you're moving, to progress. Is there any other values or any other benefits that you can think of as we've been talking around the self-actualization? What other values are there? Or have we covered like a lot of them? Because there was the 19 being values. Is there any more values?
So one of the interesting things of how Maslow conceptualized it was he contrasted deficiency with being and becoming. And when it comes to being, it's very different from instrumental striving. Most of us do so much instrumental striving. I'm doing this to lose this weight. I'm doing this to strengthen my muscles. I'm doing this to make more money. I'm doing this so that I can provide for my family. It's all instrumental. Human life is more than just striving for some end goal. And the beingness is just being who I am authentically. And when you can do that, then there's a sense of inner serenity and peace and okayness. And in terms of mental and emotional health, this is really a very significant facet of us as human beings, learning how to be and how to become. And so as a value, that would be one of the key values. The pandemic has really identified this weakness in a lot of people, because if they couldn't go to work, who am I? If they couldn't do this, who am I? If they couldn't have as much money coming in this year as last year, who am I now? And so we have to both strive and be. And holding that together, both and, in a rich tension is the challenge of living, being fully human, fully alive.
Okay. And in the Unleashing Vitality, Michael, I deliver that program probably once every 3 months, but at the end, day 3, it has the 4 mechanisms, the integrative I, the transformative I, and the sacralizing I. That sacralizing, I think, is what you're sort of talking to there as well, is how we can really enable the sacrilege of life, that beingness.
Right. Right. And it's not like that's the goal. It's also sacralizing is the way to live, to see the sacred, the specialness, the preciousness in everything. And when you do that, it changes the quality of life. We say in Neuro-Semantics the quality of your state is the quality of your life. The quality of your thinking is the quality of your life. And so we talk a lot about quality and having quality life, and self-actualization helps us to have that quality. Curious, learning, playful, respectful, sacralizing.
Okay, so another question around those parts you've just described. Could we develop a benchmark for companies to determine that degree of self-realization for people in companies?
Oh, sure. In fact, the benchmarks that you mentioned can be used in companies just as well as individuals. So some of the things we've done in the past, when we've run the 4 self-actualization modules together, is to give people a project. And one of the projects that people pick up is, I just see the battery is now low. And so Geraldine is rushing to plug this computer in so that I am not lost. So we may get lost here in a second. You got it plugged in? Okay, that's a deficiency need.
Yeah.
So we have had teams in the modules who did benchmarks for a self-actualizing family, self-actualizing business, a self-actualizing leadership team, and so you could pick any group or any context and then identify how will this group be authentic, how will they be effective communicators, how will they be supportive and loving, and you can take all of the characteristics and now identify the benchmarks.
Yeah, I think that's also, those benchmarks are in the Unleashing Leadership, where we talk about the individual, but after the leadership axes, we then work on the interaction or integration for self-actualizing companies. And that's where those benchmarks really lie in that 4-course pathway. Let me just I've got one more question here. So self-actualization is different than just achieving or achievement?
Is it different from?
Yeah, is self-actualization different than just achieving or achievement?
What does he say?
Is it different? Self-actually, is it different from achieving or achievement?
Oh, achievement or achieving?
Yeah, is it different?
Yes and no. Because it involves achieving, but it also involves an acceptance of wherever we are. So it involves a goal and being goal-oriented, but the focus is on process. So I may never get my goal, but I'm going to enjoy the process of going there, heading there. And so it is about achieving, being the best I can be, and also being appreciative and sacralizing the best I am today. So once again, it's not that either or, but the both and.
Yeah, great. Let me just ask the group, Michael, if they have any further questions that they might like to ask you about self-actualization. I really do appreciate your time and your insights. They're amazing. Like, I really, as much as I've delivered these programs, they're forever learning, right? They're a gift that keeps on giving. And so thank you for your integrity and authenticity with this material. I've got one more question, Michael. So I have clients saying, I'm okay with what I am now. I don't need to become anything better. Less goals, less stress. How do they fit into the self-actualizing model?
Well, it doesn't. I mean, they have just announced that they don't want to be a human being. I mean, really, they've just announced, I'm quitting the human race. I'm not going to be what I am. I'm going to be like an animal and sit down and just be here. Because to be human is to keep learning, growing, loving, sacralizing. That's what the human experiment and experience is all about. And so when someone does that, something is wrong at their foundation. Something is wrong at their foundation for them to say that. It's a neurotic need to not grow. And so they need maybe not just coaching, they need some therapy.
Yeah. Yeah, they're complacent or just happily content. They're not in that will to strive, or they're not out of their comfort.
Yeah, cows are happily content. Cows in the field. If you want to be a cow, be a cow. But if you want to be a human being, you're not going to be happily contented. And that's our glory.
Yeah. Yeah, we have another question. It says, earlier, Michael said, if I am a musician, then I must do music. How to know what I am? And so how do people, through their own learning, how would they know what they are?
Well, and that's the experiment. That's the experience of being a human being. Try it out. Try some shoes on and see if they fit your feet or if they hurt. If they hurt, no matter how stylish they are or what brand they are, don't wear those. Taste some food. Do you like broccoli? If you don't, say so. Don't eat it because everybody else wants you to eat it and it's how you get approval. Find what you like, how you work, how you fit. Self-actualization highlights human uniqueness. And it's the uniqueness and differences that then bring together new creativity. And so instead of having groupthink and conformity, we really highlight the uniqueness of each individual. And this is the ground of democracy. It is the totalitarian attitude. We want everybody to be the same, speak the same, be politically correct, don't step out of line. And that is not the way to develop human beings. Human beings need to be unique. And so find your uniqueness. Now, feedback is what will help you to know if you fit into a certain group or a certain culture. And if the feedback keeps telling you that you're way off, you need to learn from that feedback and adjust. And so it's an experiment. You have to keep trying and experimenting, adjusting. It's a constant development to find out who you really are, what you're made out of inside. How many great musicians have never discovered that they had music inside? Because they never tried. Well, let me pick up a violin. Let me set out a piano. Let me see what would happen if I get some training. How many great mathematicians never showed up because they just never went and looked at mathematics? And the same thing applies everywhere. Go try a lot of things and find out.
Yeah, experience life. It's there for the taking. It's there for the receiving. And so thank you again, Michael. Really appreciate this conversation and this discussion around fundamental human living, self-actualization. So thank you.
Yeah. So just to wrap it up a little bit, NLP, when it began, because it did not acknowledge sources, it did not acknowledge Maslow or Carl Rogers or the human potential movement, and because it grabbed family systems and it grabbed Gestalt and then it grabbed Ericksonian, it became a cognitive model. And the theme was, because the map is not the territory, the theme was we got to correct the map. And the whole focus was on the map and communicating. And the missing part, and this is what we in Neurosemantics can contribute, and that fleshes out in fullness NLP, is beingness. And so after all the thinking and after all the cognition and communication comes, who are you and who are you being in relationship to other people, and the call for authenticity. And the problem of NLP in the very beginning was the founders were not very authentic.
Right.
And so their incongruency, the way they fought with each other, sued each other, they forgot beingness. So I think the next big thing in neurosemantics is being. And it's why I wrote the book Inside Out and Inspiring the Heart, because we need to get to being. And so that's one of the ways. Self-actualization and beingness is one of the ways that neurosemantics completely is different from NLP.
Yeah, fantastic. Inspiring the heart. So that would be one of the, you said it was a book, Michael, and were you turning that into a training as well? Was that? Just, yeah,
yep, of course. We're going to train people to go inside, from the inside out, and then the outside in.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, look, as you said, wrapping it up now, what we will be doing next month with the community meeting is actually discussing self-actualization. So we have, I think it's 6 weeks between now and the community meeting, or I might get the date. Mizuki might share the date with us for the community meeting. But we want all of the people on the call here, and thank everybody for being on the call, to think about this material, a self-actualization, and apply this material. And then in our next community meeting in June, we're going to look at how that works. And one of the tools we could also look at is using the self-actualization assessment scale and how that can be beneficial for a meta coach, for your clients. And so the community meeting is on the 11th of June. And so that will be about self-actualization. So we've had a great attendance here today, and I'd love to have everybody back again for the community meeting next month, so we can work on and develop more of our self-actualizing characteristics for fully functioning human people. Thank you, Michael. I really appreciate your time. Enjoy the conference.
Thank you. Thank you, Sean.
My pleasure. So if there's any other questions, let us know.
Thank you, Michael. It is a real pleasure listening from you. And I hope that you'll have a great time at the conference. I have gained so much from this presentation. I've put it onto my mind map so that I can refer to it later. However, for those of you who are here, and I noticed some of you came in slightly later, know that we have a recording of this, and the link to the recording will be sent to you in about a couple of days' time. So I'll send that link to the recording to you. So we've come to the end of the session. I would like to thank all of you for being here. However, don't go yet. We are going to go for a quick photo session. I know that you have had fun listening and learning from Michael. So for the photo session, I would like everybody to put your video on, switch on your video, and put your best face. If you need time to straighten your face, how you look, go ahead and do that. And I've got 5 screens to take photo of. So put on your best smile and hold it there for a few seconds or minutes. I don't know. So I'm going to take the first screen. Everybody, and stop putting anything inside the chat box. Otherwise, it will pop out at the bottom.
I disabled the chat, so don't worry about that.
Yes. So everybody ready? 3, 2, 1. So that's the first one. That's the first screen. The second screen. Ready? 3, 2, 1. The thing is that you don't know which screen you're on, so you have to smile for every. Okay, ready, 3, 2, 1. And the fourth screen, ready, 3, 2, 1. And going on to the fifth screen, ready, 3, 2, 1. Oops. No. Yeah, okay. Got that. So everybody, thank you very much. I hope that you have had fun. I love the learning that Michael gave, and I hope you had fun and connected with somebody today. And as Sean had announced, we have our community meeting on the 11th of June. So looking forward to seeing all of you. And I want to congratulate all of you for being here. We had more than 130 people. So let's give ourselves a big hand for that. A wonderful meeting of people, meeting of minds. I would like to say I love you. Take care. May God bless you and keep you safe. So with that, thank you very much. And good morning, good afternoon, and good night to everyone.
Thank you,
Thank you,
everybody.
Thank you,
Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Michael and Geraldine.
Lucky, thank you,
Thank
Michael.
you.
Nice
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, everybody. Thank you,
Thank you.
Geraldine.
Enjoy your conference, Michael and Geraldine. Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
See you in June.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you. Amazing.